You can't be serious. That's it? One drop.
Welcome back to TTC. For today's episode, we bought folding style Worklights inspection lights. From cheap options on Amazon to Harbor Freight's Icon and GearWrench, all the way up to tool truck options from Matco and Snap-on. And don't worry, if we're missing your favorite Braun or Streamlight options, we've tested those before and can add how they did versus these on the chart at the end here. We're mainly testing lights that can fold in half today. And that's going to include lumen testing them in our DIY light integrating sphere that we've calibrated using a professional lab, light output over runtime, charging differences, and of course, durability. All these lights advertise very similar specs: lumens, runtime, country of origin. So the gap between these in price, which is 20, 40 up to 150 bucks, that seems frankly silly if they can all deliver on this promise. Let's check it out. Up first in order of price is the $20 DuraPower, one of the best-selling lights of this type on Amazon, and a name I can finally pronounce for a change. Design-wise, it's very similar to the Snap-on we'll be testing coming up, and it advertises 800 lumens, which is where a lot of these lights we're testing sort of hover around using these cob LED strips on the front. It's a bit more wobbly than you'd prefer, but its magnet works well enough. Each of the detent positions feels sort of plasticky and hollow, like it's gonna get worn down pretty soon, but it does charge with USB-C, which is nice. And that charges at 1 amp, which is fairly typical for these things. These blue indicating lights are on the board inside the tool and display through a clear lens that peers down onto the board inside, which also looks a bit cheap. And it has a hook that's a bit hidden and you can't convince it out really, even with a fingernail. It required a razor to pry it out, and you have a hook, there you have it. Once it's stored again, you again can't really access it. But 800 lumens, that's sort of a tall order for this price. We wait 30 seconds per the NCF01 standard, then see what it can do, which for this one is, and it's already fallen out of high, back into high, just 356, 352 lumens. And it can keep that output for less than 30 seconds as we saw before dropping down into low. And this flashlight setting you can use when folded, you probably noticed isn't all that useful either. It says 100 lumens, makes about 80, and it's all focused into one spot. 350 from the main 800 lumen light puts it at just 44% of advertised. You'd hope it lasts a long time at this light level, or maybe it's durable, because this one is comically bad even compared to a Harbor Freight Braun, which while also making 350 lumens only advertises like 390 and can stay at that level. But from the same store, offered under their top professional line, is their newer model, the Icon 800 lumen folding work light for 40 bucks. Another light advertising 800 lumens. This one feels a lot less floppy than the last one, or the Braun for that matter. Its top light looks useful, and even its back secondary work light puts out a decent amount of that light. And while its magnet is quite good, much better than the Braun, a big oversight I feel is where they put the main and secondary lights. It's backwards. It only folds one way, so every other angle on the way to being fully straight, the light that's directional, as in the one you can point things at when it's magnetized to something, is only the secondary light, not the main LED. Probably to look, better when folded, but it's sold in this unnecessarily large package, not even folded, so I don't really get it. And another thing, it charges USB-C, which is an upgrade, at about 0.85 to 0.9 amps, which is meh. But the base is not removable, so it has a standard 18650 inside that you cannot remove, replace, swap, upgrade like you can on the Braun. With this being their professional line, you'd hope to see some additional charging features compared to the cheaper model, not less. Hopefully in the lumens department though, we're seeing some improvement. And it is seeing 731, 745, 745. We're calling that around 742 lumens. Not 800, but also not terrible. The other side sees 320 to 350 on this thing, which is about matching what the DuraPower and Braun made with their main lights. Very usable, that's 93%, maybe closest rating of any Harbor Freight we've purchased. Ideally, for how solid this one feels, durability is what's going to help set it apart even more. Next up in price, we also bought on Amazon, but from a name you can often find elsewhere as well, GearWrench. This is the Flex Head Worklight 83135, not to be confused with their similar looking 200 lumen model for less coin. This is their highest spec model for $58 and it's advertising 500 lumens, the least on the day, but possibly a good mid-range option before we get crazy in the price. This one's double hinged, which is sort of cool. You can fold it either way on the light, and it has your sort of standard top light and main working light. It also has a fairly useful hook and base magnet that fit the bill, easy to use. The most confusing thing about this model is its charging. It uses USB, so okay, but also has a barrel connector plug from the USB wall adapter. This is like the worst of both worlds. Usually the downside of USB is it's only 5 volts, so sort of capped at charging speeds depending on how many amps it can take. But the upside is you have plenty of these laying around if you lose that cord. On the flip side, the barrel connector usually can charge faster than USB, but is not universal, so if you lose that cable, you're going to have a harder time replacing it. This is both of the bad things, and neither of the good. A real head scratcher, that design choice, not sure why they did that. So, of its 500 lumens though, it is making 442, 445, yeah, about 450 lumens. 90% of advertised, bright enough for many things really, but not dazzling. And speaking of not dazzling, that top light, the Icon, which we haven't shown you yet, makes 151, which is very usable. The GearWrench makes just 33. No one around here is getting excited about having to cycle through a 33 lumen top light setting each time they turn it on. All right, moving on to the tool trucks, which means price is going up too. This is the PC Fold wireless charging 850 lumen folding work light, part of Matco's Pro Charge line, which means it can be charged with USB-C at like 1.25 to 1.5 amps, or via the magnetic wireless wall charger that can sort of stick to the side of a toolbox or lift and snap the lights to it to charge wirelessly. This also has a cradle to charge cell phones too. This model has the 850 lumen main light, a UV black light on top, that's a new one, for UV dye leak detection, then a 400 lumen secondary work light. And that light can be used while it's folded up, which makes sense, as when the light unfolds, you have those various angles to use the main light with now, which makes a bit more sense than the direction Icon went. And while yeah, it puts out a lot of light in high, it's noticeable in person, but just how much? This comes in at 878, 72, 868, we'll call that 870 lumens. That's 102%, or about dead on for really what we're doing here versus what's advertised. It's also the largest advertised battery on the day, so we'll have to see how it's going to look when we're talking runtime and light output over that runtime. But first, our last contestant, the Snap-on ECARG068 600 lumen flex light. They do make a 600 to 800 lumen model, but the one we bought is already the largest on the day, and their 800 lumen model is 180 bucks. And absolutely massive. What a chonker. This model definitely compares the best with what we expect from this category size-wise. But with that size, you do get a swappable battery. It is proprietary. Only a Snap-on battery this shape will work in it, but it does mean you can buy another battery and skip that whole charging downtime. They are $40, which isn't terrible by Snap-on standards. And while they are also USB-C, they charge at 3/4 of an amp, so it's going to be slow enough to encourage you to want that second battery. Overall, it's a very similar design to the Amazon light, just sort of better. The flashlight end is actually useful. This makes 310 lumens to its advertised 350, which makes it the most so far for a top light, as Matco's makes 180. When the light is opened, only the main light can be turned on, and when it's closed, only the flashlight end can be turned on. That's kind of smart. The light bar is thin, though the body not so much. It isn't floppy as a result of that, but the magnetic base, due to having to share that space with that battery hatch, isn't as up to the task as the other lights, and this is its downside, I feel. Let's take a look at those 600 lumens, and we're seeing 574, about 575 lumens. That is 96% of advertised. Really, a lot of these lights, most of them, in the wheelhouse of what they're advertising compared to what we often see. So what's the deal? Besides some annoying differences between these at times, are these closer than their prices indicate? Well, the rest of our testing here today tells the story. Off first to the light output over time. ANSI FL1 can be cheated easily by having high output initially and then dropping off to whatever afterwards. And as work lights, not just flashlights, you'd hope to set it and forget it with some decent amount of light, not having to mess with it to keep it in that high level. Here's the first 3 options on screen. The Icon drops off quickly, well before the 10-minute mark. It's putting out around 400 lumens like the GearWrench is now, so comparable performance really. The DuraPower is just not all that useful its entire life. The icon then steps down again, which saves power, leading to the GearWrench tapping out first from trying to stay above 400 at 2 hours and 20 minutes, with the icon making it to 3 hours along with the DuraPower at lower lumen levels. And here's how the Matco and Snap-on compare. Both drop, but the Snap-on doing it more so and more often, joining and really coming under the icon and GearWrench, the Matco staying more in the 5 to 600s until at nearly 2 hours it drops into the 400s. Area under the curve wise, staying brighter than the others here for the length of its runtime. All these are fairly similar runtimes, being similar design and advertised lumens. The battery capacities as measured makes the difference, as we're showing here. The 1700 milliamp hour as measured Amazon Special, well, it turns on enough to perhaps make you leave a 5-star review before putting it away and not using it. Most of the rest of these have similar battery capacities, and that resulted in fairly similar lumen minutes as measured, basically the amount of light output we got for each tool totaled. These are all fairly close. The Matco having a 3250 milliamp hour cell inside that accepted 3190 from us in our charging pumps up the numbers here and is able to maintain this level of lumens more easily. Charge time is a similar story, the standouts being this tiny battery still took 3 hours to charge, and this large battery took the least of the rest due to accepting more amps. But that of course becomes more in line with these others when wireless charging. But I mean, even so, here, a lot of these differences can be justified with these cost savings here. So let's settle the score once and for all with durability testing. We dropped them on the pavement from increasing heights, mixed with dips into the drink here, since yeah, that happens with the Worklight, and see who comes out on top. Icon is up first, take a look. The first drop is 3 foot.
You can't be serious. There's no way. That's it? One drop. The Amazon one's still working.
The DuraPower lasts 3 drops at 3 feet before intermittent issues, and 1 drop at 10 foot before its body broke apart. This gets a 2 out of 10. Now as for the icon you saw, that gets, well, a lot less. We've never seen a light fail on the first official drop. Yes, we're including water here, which we have done before. We've even soaked Worklights in gas and coolant for several days without issue on many of them. The Harbor Freight Braun is also plagued with durability issues, and that got a 1 out of 10 from us. So this icon, we only have one way to go from here. It gets a 0 out of 10. All these tools get an equal chance. It's really just a poor showing. It's not even scratched yet and it's no longer working. The others in the bucket are still fine though, so GearWrench is up next. Second 3 foot drop, it lost its hanging hook, which won't go back in, so that's a bit of a bummer. And after the third drop, cycling the power button, it will no longer turn on, so 2 out of 10 from the GearWrench as well.
Done.
This is a very poor group of lights in terms of durability so far. Usually we're taking 12, 16, 20 foot drops by now. Okay, Matco and Snap-on next.
So good. Look at.
Both of these lights graduated to the heart and wallet hurting process of spiking these on the ground, which both of them were happy to do. We don't warranty these products, so this is less fun than it probably looks to destroy perfectly good tools like these.
Just die already. The UV light even still works. Yeah, this is just not dying. Not happening.
And they are both still perfectly good after this. Well, the Snap-on would probably tell you otherwise if it could talk. It looks less than factory stock at this point. Really, both of these lights are pretty battered and bruised, but could not, after a dozen attempts, be spiked onto the ground to death. So they both get a 10 out of 10 for durability. And really what separates this list into two halves, as soon as the price jumped up majorly, so did durability, which is not something we often see in lights. For example, the $250 Surefire flashlight did even less than average for us compared to cheaper lights doing much better. So it must be something to do with the design of these types of lights, not really sure. Something we also found true with the Streamlight, as we add the Braun and folding stinger on here. That's another 800 lumen model. That's a bit big due to using two 18650s inside the handle, but that helps its runtime quite a lot as shown here. And that was also a rare 10 out of 10 in durability, so represents maybe some middle ground here in this price range. But what's holding back this model is that it's micro USB and has a very slow charging rate. We measured it at 8.5 hours with no way to take those batteries out. Man, if they updated this thing to USB-C and 2 amp charging, it would be a no-brainer. Until then, with what we got here between Icon and Braun, I'd go maybe neither, but both of them have similar pluses and minuses. Braun for that removable battery. These two get great durability and ease of warranty if something does happen. The Matco seeming to come out on top by the numbers here, with the Streamlight being a runner-up due to size being sometimes awkward and that extra long charging time. Appreciate you joining us. We make episodes like this at least every Friday. Click subscribe to join us for those too, and thanks for watching.